are two young law students. They are Buerk and Kendrick Sandifer. I might have mispronounced their names, but they're both interns at the Kramer Environmental Law Clinic of Case Western Reserve University. They will speak about the legal work they have done for SOBE concerned citizens and also about the Moratorium ordinance. And their help from them and previous interns has been invaluable. So if those two interns could please come up.
How's everybody doing tonight? My name is Kendrick Sandifer.
And I'm Buerk. We are both certified legal interns with the Environmental Law Clinic at Case Western Reserve University School of Law. And we are both working on the SOBE concerned citizens case. We just want to emphasize that we are so excited and eager to be working for a community that is full of dedicated residents and activists. And we share your collective commitment to ending environmental injustice in Youngstown and preventing entities like SOBE from coming in and treating your town like it's an experiment and like it's a sacrifice. We think that's unacceptable, and so we're here to fight that in whatever capacity we're able. Our goal tonight is to give you an update on the clinic's work for SOBE concerned citizens, and then we will take questions. I'm going to give you guys an update on the Environmental Review Appeals Commission that SOBE is currently fighting, and then my colleague Kendrick is going to talk about the Youngstown Moratorium, which is set to expire in December. Apologies if some of this crosses over with what your City Councilwoman Anita Davis discussed. We're just going to rehash it because it's all very important, and again, we're happy to take questions. So turning now to SOBE's appeal before the Environmental Review Appeals Commission, which is called ERAC. For those of you who don't know, an ERAC appeal is triggered under a number of circumstances, but in our case, particularly when the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency issues a permit to some entity like SOBE that allows them to engage in some sort of activity like pyrolysis, and then community members, or in our case, the City of Youngstown, identifies the issuance of that permit as erroneous or as unjust and decides to fight it. So we're quite lucky that the City of Youngstown recognized that and is actively fighting the issuance of that permit. Essentially, the most recent update in that case, which has been ongoing since March, is that SOBE has in fact hired an attorney out of a Columbus-based firm called Voorhees. It's an expensive firm. SOBE, as you know, David Farrow is from a particularly rich suburb of Columbus. And while that can be concerning that he has a new attorney, essentially what that means, and we're mostly speculating here based off of what we know that's publicly available and what we know about how these appeals cases tend to work, is what that means is now SOBE is able to more meaningfully engage in the appeals process and essentially take it seriously in a way that it just wasn't before by not having an attorney. It was ordered repeatedly to hire an attorney and finally did. So what we can speculate is that the parties are engaged in initial discussions, they're coordinating schedules, they're maybe having early discussions in informal discovery, which is when they start to exchange documents and ask questions of one another. The parties filed what's called a joint status report at the end of July, and they basically told the commission, hey, look, we're talking, we don't have an update right now, we need more time to keep talking. And they were given an extra 60 days to continue to talk. Since then, SOBE has hired an attorney. They have another joint status report due to the commission at the end of October. What we anticipate is that they're just gonna ask for more time. And that's for a couple of reasons that we're coming to that conclusion, but essentially, they'll just file a joint status report asking for another extension. If they were to push forward, we get into a really expensive stage of the appeals process. It looks more like litigation, like a civil court case, if you're familiar with it at all. The parties start to get really involved in discovery, and SOBE's bills start to get very expensive. But as you all know, even if SOBE were to win its appeal, there are two other areas of the law they essentially have to comply with in order to engage in pyrolysis. successfully in Youngstown. And those are the zoning argument that Anita Davis discussed, but also the existing moratorium. And so I just want to reemphasize that we believe very strongly in our zoning argument, but that it's important to have as many lines of defense in fighting paralysis in this city as possible, because it's just possible that anything could change. However, as it relates to the zoning argument, we want to emphasize that the area SOBE wants to engage in paralysis is not properly zoned for industrial uses. Now in 2013, as some of you may know, Youngstown completely revamped its zoning code, and at that time, it changed the area where SOBE wants to operate to a mixed-use district, which does not allow for industrial uses. Any existing industrial uses at that time were legacied in. So what that means is that the steam heat operation, which many of you know is currently operating, is called a legacy use. It's allowed to continue under the zoning code, but it is not allowed to expand significantly, and especially not in a way that adversely impacts the public health. And so we believe that the zoning argument is robust in that regard. So if the appeal were to fail before ERAC, we believe that the zoning argument is quite strong. And even in the event the zoning argument weren't as strong as we truly believe that it is, you guys have done some phenomenal work in passing a moratorium and are seeking to have that renewed. So on that note, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague to talk about the moratorium.
I have a question about this. Oh, yeah.
How y'all doing? Once again, my name is Kendrick Sandifer. As my colleague Ellie just said, I'm here to talk about the moratorium. First, I'd like to give a shout out to the council city members and everybody involved in this past year getting the moratorium passed. It has been instrumental. A special shout out goes to Mayor Tito Brown of Youngstown. It's all just been instrumental in making sure Youngstown is protected from these harmful pollutants that a pyrolysis plant could bring in. So just starting, the pyrolysis plant, the process has been described tonight, a lot tonight. So they bring in rubber chips from tires across the country, and they use the plant to break them down into a chemical to try and sell it to synthetic gas. There's no proof that this is a safe process so far, and as far as we can tell, I don't think any is coming. So it's just all about keeping Youngstown safe, and that's what this moratorium is designed to do. It was passed last year, December 20th, unanimously. Once again, thank you to the City Council. It went into effect on December 26th. It'll expire midnight on December 25th. So, Merry Christmas to everybody. It is in the best interest, from our side, that everybody does their part in, keeping this, moratorium going. The City Council has done theirs. We urge, everybody present, everybody in Youngstown that takes issue with the pyrolysis plant, to support your City Council. Write in saying you want this moratorium renewed, you want this pyrolysis plant, if at all possible, permanently taken out. It is our hope that we can get the moratorium extended for another year, and it'll just play its role as another member of the defense, so to speak.
All right, that wraps up our comments. Thank you, guys.
And now we have some time for comments or questions, if anyone has them.
Can you talk about what a zoning variance would look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as was mentioned by Anita Davis, Youngstown is Ohio is a home rule state, so states are able to develop essentially whatever robust laws they want to in their zoning provisions, so long as it doesn't conflict with state law. Youngstown has a really robust series of elements that have to be met for a variance to be had. I can talk about those in detail if you want, but we believe that a variance would not apply here because all of those elements would need to be met. One of them, for example, is that extraordinary circumstances have to be shown justifying the use of pyrolysis. That being said, like in zoning arguments, things can move in ways we don't expect them to. In the event that the appeal were to fail, we would fight any sort of attempts to engage in pyrolysis based off of what we think the zoning code really does say. Does that answer your question?